Hello. In this lesson, we are looking at adding fractions. There are two cases when we are adding fractions that we can encounter. Case one is when both of our fractions have the same denominators, and that is easier to add. Case one is when we have two fractions with different denominators. We look at both cases and we will see how we can add in both cases. Case one, fractions with the same denominator. To add fractions with the same denominator, we keep the denominator and add their numerators. As an example, when we want to find the sum of 1 on 7 plus 3 on 7, what we do, we keep the 7 because the denominators are the same. That's the denominator. That is the numerator for the first fraction. That's the numerator for the second fraction. All we need to do is add the two numerators. So 1 plus 3 is 4. And denominator stays the same. So our answer is 4 over 7. We kept the denominator 7 and we added the numerators 1 and 3. Now case 2 is a bit more difficult when you're adding fractions with different denominators. To do this, the first thing we need to do is to write them with the same denominator and then add them. So write them with the same denominator, then add them. But how do we do that? How do we write them with the same denominator? Or what is the same denominator? The same denominator will be the lowest common multiple of the two denominators. We already covered LCM, lowest common multiple. So first we find the lowest common multiple of the two denominators. Then we write them as two new fractions with the same denominator. Then we add them. Again, let's have a look at an example. Find 1 on 7 plus 3 on 7. As you can see, we have two different denominators. One is 5, the other one is 7. Our first step is to find the multiples of 5. So here I've got multiples of 5. As you remember, to write the multiples of any number, start with that number and keep adding the number to itself. So 5 and keep 5 to itself, you get 10. Then keep adding 5 to that, you get 15, and you always add 5, the original number. So 15 plus 5 is 20, 20 plus 5, 25, 25 plus 5 is 30, and so on. To find the multiples of 7, start with 7 and keep adding 7. 7, then 14, then 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, and so on. Then we look for the number that appears in both of this new set of multiples. As you can see, 35 is the first number that you can see in both multiples. That will be our lowest common multiple. If I kept going, I would have come across other numbers which also are appearing in both sets. But what we are interested in is the number that is the smallest and appears in both of them. In this case, 35. My next step is to write both fractions out of 35. So the first fraction I had was 1/5. So I write 1/5 out of 35. But how do I do this? To do this, we got to see because 5 has changed to 35. Where does 35 come from? From here. It is our lowest common multiple. I got to see what I need to multiply 5 by to become 35. And from times tables, we know that it is 7. So 5 times 7 makes 35. To have my equivalent fractions, not to change my fraction, still to be equal to 1/5, but with a different denominator, which is in this case 35, I need to times also the top by the same number, which is in this case 7. So 1 times 7 is 7. That's how I find 7. And for the next fraction, which is 3 out of 7, I want to again write it out of 35. Again 35 because 35 is my lowest common multiple. So that is what I write here. Again, I ask myself, what number do I need to times 7 by to end up with 35? And in this case, it is 5. So 7 times 5 gives me 35. Because I times the denominator by 5, I need to times the numerator also by 5. And 3 times 5 gives me 15. Now I have two sets of fractions which are equal to original fractions but have the advantage of having the same denominator. So I can add them more easily. So rather than adding the original ones, I'm going to add these new fractions. So 7 over 35 plus 15 over 35. Now because the denominators are the same, like case 1, I can keep the same denominator and add the numerators. 7 plus 15, which gives me 22. So 22 over 35. So my answer to the sum of 1/5 plus 3 on 7 is equal to 22 on 35. So 1/5 plus 3/7 is equal to 22 over 35. That is the final answer. Thank you very much for your attention.